What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Line 6 Pod Go. We're going to listen to it in a full metal mix. What better way to demonstrate what this thing can do than to hear it in action, in context? Because let's face it, that's what most of us are doing. We're not listening to things on its own. So we're going to listen to the Pod Go in a full metal mix. It's a truncated version of my newest single, Anxiety, which is of course available everywhere and for sale on Bandcamp. Thanks to those of you who have purchased it and streamed it so far. Now I want to preface this with, I'm pretty blown away at this thing. It is somewhat stripped down, especially compared to the Helix rack that I have. But this thing utilizes the same exact amp modeling technology that its big brothers and sisters use. If this thing was available at the time that I purchased my Helix rack, I might have purchased it. And of course, as with anything, choosing this over one of the full-size Helix models is going to depend on your particular set of needs. Input, output, all of that stuff. But this thing gets the job done, and it gets the job done very, very well. Let's listen to the track, and then we'll walk through the patches I created. If you're into guitars, metal riffage, mixing, and everything in between, hit subscribe and follow along. All right, so let's head over to the computer and go over a few of the patches that I used in this truncated version of my track. Okay, so I suppose before we dive into the patches, maybe we should kind of go over how this thing works, huh? This is the unit. Pretty compact. It's very, very robust. This is steel or aluminum. This is a very, very nice, thick and sturdy expression pedal. Very, very similar to the Helix floor units, just, you know, squeezed down. It's a little guy. If we start on the expression pedal side, first and foremost, we have the expression pedal. And by default, it's controlling the volume or gain, depending on what you have selected. Along the back, we have the guitar in, which is right here. Then we have an expression pedal where you can add an additional expression pedal to control different parameters. We have a stereo effects loop, mono left and right, that you can use to, plug in perhaps different external pedals, and you can then insert them right here into your chain. So that's really cool. Then we have your main outs left and right. I have the main left, the mono channel, going to my audio interface because, I mean, I have an audio interface and that's just how I prefer to set my Helix up. So I'm doing this the same way. I do have it hooked up via USB. You can use it as an audio interface, and that's what you would want to do if you wanted to do some reamping. I do have a video on that, I believe, with the big Helix, but the principle is the same. And also with the HX Stomp, sort of the same principle. So again, we have the main left and right. Then we have our amp out. And what this does is you set it up to send your signal, your chain signal out before your cabinet or your IR block, okay? That way you can push that to something like the Seymour Duncan power stage, which would then feed a 2x12 or 4x12, and you can listen to a real cabinet with your Helix tones. And then after that, you have the headphones, which is stereo headphone jack. Everything is controlled with this volume knob right here. This controls the volume out into your headphones, out to your studio monitors. We have a pair of knobs and buttons up top. This top button is how you cycle through the various blocks in your chain. And you can see that it's also having an effect over on the PodGo edit software. The PodGo does come with companion software. It does not use HX Edit. It uses its own software called PodGo Edit. It looks a little nicer. It's got cool little pictures of all the amps. It's prettier. So right here we can cycle through. We'll start at the beginning. We have your basic stuff, your input, and depending on whatever block you have open is what these knobs will control. So you can see we have 3 parameters in input: the gate, the threshold, and decay. And that's how you would control these parameters. We cycle through. Now these 2 first blocks are always in place. So what you're going to do is it defaults controlling the volume pedal. And if we move the pedal, you can see that it's controlling, you can see the percentage changing. There's also a few different options you can cycle through. You have basically right here is just your typical volume pedal. You can control the gain, the input gain going into your the beginning of your signal. You can control the panning, and then you have a stereo width option. If you click this bottom button, you can cycle through the various options that way. And then you click again, and you bring it up. So if we cycle over here, you can see that there's a wah here. And again, if we click this bottom one, it brings up our options. Okay, or you can cycle through here. And by default, it controls the volume pedal and the wah is off. But if you take the expression pedal and push down, it will engage a button that's underneath it. And now you are controlling the wah, so you can see the wah position right there. And of course, we can control the overall mix and the level right there. Like again, hit this bottom button. You can cycle through the various wahs, or just do that here. So if you push the toe, disengages the control of the volume pedal, engages the wah, push it again, switches over to the volume, disengages the wah. Cool. So again, we'll cycle through this. Now, this is, I believe, a block that is initially free. And if you want to disengage or engage, you click the top button. You can see that it's engage, disengage. Again, we can cycle through the various distortion blocks, or click, cycle through that way. Okay. You can control parameters here, or we can, of course, control the parameters here, and you can see it's reflected on the unit. I don't remember what it was at, but I know I had the gain all the way down, the level up, and this is probably at 9 or 9.5. If you want to clear that block, go here, and cycle over to none. And there you go. But I don't want to do that. This is another block that's available to you. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 available blocks. This EQ block is in every patch. This is the IR block or the cabinet block. Then you have the amp block. Those are, so this is always there. The volume pedal is always there. The wah is always there. Your send effects loop is always there. Sorry about the focus. I'm in a weird spot. My camera doesn't like it. Amp block is always there. IR or cabinet block is always there. EQ block is always there. You have a choice to engage it, and then these are open blocks for you. So if we wanted to add something here, like a delay, hit this bottom button, and then we can select with the top, delay, and then cycle through. Let's go to dual delay, and boom. And then again, you can see down here, you can control the various parameters. And then with the page left and right, you can see there's more options available to us. And that applies to any particular block that you have more options available to you. So once again, we don't need this block there, so we can engage it or disengage, or click this one, scroll to none, hit enter, okay? This is again the effects send and receive. If you hit action, you can move the block, and this applies to any block. So say we wanted, to send it to an external delay or reverb. Maybe you'd want it after the cab. If you wanted to use something like a real tube screamer or the precision drive, you'd want it before the amp. So you have the option to move that. And the same, like I said, applies to anything. So, if for whatever reason you wanted the EQ block in front of the amp, or, you have that option. Cool. Now we're on to the amp block. Let me just bring it back to what I had defaulted. And this is a good example of various pages. So every one of these knobs controls this. So this can presence, treble, mid, bass, the drive. Cool. And then we have different pages: channel volume, master, depth. Again, these knobs applicable to the available parameters. Simple, just like how it works on your big boy Helixes. Here is your IR block or your cabinet block, your built-in cabinets. Click here, you get the 1024 sample IR, that's all you have available to you. Again, this is a little bit of a stripped down version, so you don't get that 2048 full resolution option. But then we can go scroll over to cab. These are the built-in Line 6 cabs. And of course, you can cycle through these. So one of my favorites is the 4x12 Uber with the T75s. And again, you have parameters available to you: mic selection, distance of the microphone, high cut, low cut, early reflections, and then overall level. You can disengage or engage it. Again, click this, cycle back over to our IRs, and then you can see we have parameters available to us for the impulse. Again, sorry, I gotta stay here. I keep moving too close to read. Cycle through the different IRs you have loaded right here, and I have a bunch loaded in from Owen Hammer's newest Line 6 player pack, exclusively available on the Line 6 marketplace. You can control the low cut and the high cut of the IR, the mix, which I'm not entirely sure why you would want to adjust the mix, but you have that available to you, and then the overall level. We have you can see there's no dots here, so we have no more options available to us. Again, this EQ block is always there, and it's always populated with an EQ, but you can select whether or not to have it engaged or disengaged, or what particular EQ you want. So again, if we wanted to use an EQ, you can click down and cycle through. I use the tilt EQ a lot, so say we wanted to add that. Well, put the center frequency at 650, which I stole from Jason Sedites. and then we'll brighten it up. So we have that option available to us. Then you can control the level. You click the buttons, it'll return to the default, whatever that might be. Again, you can cycle through the various EQs here. We have an EQ 10 band graphic equalizer, and now you have page left and right available to you because we have more parameters. I got the Kali EQ, and I missed a few. So we have a simple EQ, a high and a low cut, a high shelf and a low shelf, the parametric EQ, tilt EQ, and a 10 band graphic equalizer. And then the Kali graphic equalizer. Here they all are. I feel like I kind of went out of order. Very confusing. Sorry. Hit that home button, we'll go back to here. We don't need that engaged, so hit the top button to disengage it. Again, we can add a block here. If you wanted to add maybe some delay here or reverb, whatever, you can make your selection. Okay. And then I have a room reverb, which is typically what I do to my patches. And you can cycle through the pages, various parameters. Again, works very much like your big boy Helix. So if you have a Helix floor, Helix LT, Helix rack, a lot of this will just seem super familiar to you. Then you have your main outputs. If you click these two page buttons, you have additional options for bypass control, global EQ, to bring up the global EQ, and then you can cycle through the various parameters here. It's a little more stripped down, but you have a low cut, a high band, a mid band, and a low band. You can adjust each of these frequencies. So the low band goes up to 500 hertz, and it goes down as far as, what is it? To go down to 20? Goes down to 20. Terrible framing, bro. And that's where you would do that. So let's just make sure I don't have anything engaged here. No. And then if you want to save your patch, you click the home button and the action button, and you can cycle through the characters. You change the characters here. Cool. You can delete characters here. You can switch which bank you want to load it back into, and then you can click this button to save it. But we don't need to do that. Now, if you hit the home button, we have our preset view right here. So you can see your presets, and of course we still have control over amp settings right down here. You can see drive, bass, mid, treble, presence. Okay. And you can see when we hit our foot switches, it's switching our presets. If we double click the arrows, it'll bring up our snapshot selection. So if you had snapshots saved, we'll go over that in another video. This is how you would switch between them. Click them again, bring back the preset view. If you hit the home button, you then bring back the parameters. Oops. Cool. So that's somewhat of an overview of the physical unit. Oh yeah, don't let me forget, if you hold the tap tuner button, it'll bring up your tuner. You can then, if you want tap tempo, you adjust your tap tempo, or you can adjust your BPM when it comes up after you tap it. Cool. Mode button. So if we hit the mode button, you then cycle between preset mode or snapshot mode. If you hit the mode button here, now what you have here is stompbox mode. So we can disengage or engage the room, the Scream 808, the low and high shelf if we wanted to, or the effects loop. And you can assign the various foot switches to what you want to control. There's our rough overview of the physical unit. So now let's dive into the patches. Okay, so we have Pod Go Edit open. We are in the first patch. So in the demo or the example, I have one tone on the left and one tone on the right. I've been doing that lately. Sort of helps with the stereo spacing. This is what it sounds like. Sounds sick, I know. Okay, so let's start from left to right. So we have, you know, input gate on, per usual, 10 milliseconds. This is default. Then we're going into the distortion block, the Scream 808, gain set to 0, tone set to 9, level set to 10. Pretty typical stuff for me. Like I said, this is this is just basically a Helix, just stripped down. So a lot of this is going to be redundant. We have an open effects block. We have the effects loop, not in use. Then we are using the line 6 Badonk. The drive is at 4.7, bass is at 3.3. It's nice that you can see all of these parameters. They're nice and big in Pod Go Edit, and I like that. So where was I? Drive 4.7, bass 3.3, the mid is at 4, treble is at 6.3, presence is at 7.2, the channel volume is at 9.5, the master is at 5, the depth is down to 0.7, I have the sag up at 6.3, bias is at 5, and the bias X is up at 5.5. Then we are going into an impulse block. Again, you can switch between a cab or an IR. We have the IR here. I'm using one of Ownhammer's new impulses that is exclusively available on the Line 6 marketplace. It's in the new Workhorse pack. This is the OH412DJNT Gent V30X high gain. So this is an impulse mixed for a high gain amp output with a blend of a modern vintage 30 and a retro vintage 30. And a lot of you guys know John from Sonic Drive Studios. He works with Ownhammer and he recommended this. So, and he was not wrong. He suggested this particular impulse. I went for it. They have a few different mixes of each cab, each like gent mix. There's a high gain, a medium gain, a low gain, and one mixed for live sound. I'm using the high gain with, again, the 50-50 mix of a modern V30 and a vintage V30. I add a lot of, as I'm sure you guys have picked up on this over the course of the last couple of years, I like a shimmery, bright tone that kind of cuts through. So I have the treble and the presence cranked on this, and I in turn end up kind of rolling off some of that high end. So I have the low cut at 50 Hertz and the high cut down to 10K. And this is what you get when the volume is up. So from there, I'm just going, I'm not using the EQ block. I have a blank block here, and then I'm using the room reverb, which I use in most of my patches, just for a little ambiance. Everything is default except the mix, which I have down to 15. And that is the tone I used on the left side. So now let's go to my other tone, which I have called NH Purple, because I use the RevGen Purple. So again, I have the input gate on, then we're running into the Discream 808 again. Gain is at 0, tone 9.5, the level is at 10. Blank block, blank effects loop into the RevGen Purple. The drive is at 5.5, the bass is at 5.4, the mid is at 5.9, the treble is at 5.4, the presence is at 6.4, the channel volume I have cranked again, you know, depending on your setup, that's something you're going to want to tweak. The master's at 5, resonance is at 2.6, I have the aggression set to 1, sag is at 3.8, hum is at 4, ripple is at 3.9, bias is at 5.0, and bias X is up to 5.5. Then we are again going into that very same cabinet impulse, the OH412 DGNT V30X high gain. Low cut is at 50 Hertz. High cut is down to 8K on this one. Badonk. Purple. Cool. Sounds different, right? And that's what I want. I want some variation in the tone. And then I'm not using the EQ block. I'm not using an effects block here. And then again, we're running into the room reverb. Everything is default. The mix is at 14. Excellent playing. Cool. So during the chorus, I have this droning layered guitar in the background, but I have it really lo-fi. Now, I just ended up creating another patch to do so. It's basically the Badonk patch with a high and a low cut on it. Now, I could have created a snapshot in the Badonk and done it that way. I just created a new patch. We'll go over snapshots in another video. So basically, like I said, this is the Badonk preset. Settings are basically exactly the same, except I have engaged this low and high cut to make it sound lo-fi. You know, it's droning, it's in the background, it's kind of like tucked into the mix. I don't want to draw too much attention to it, but you know, I wanted it there. And so I'll do like a lo-fi effect to it. That's the lo-fi. Now let's go on to the clean tone I used for the clean section. Very, very dry, just pristine. And I think I used the coil split. So I have the gate on. I'm then going into the deluxe comp. Negative 37.1 dB, the ratio is at 6:1, the attack is at 38 milliseconds, the release is at 200 milliseconds, and the level is at 7, and the knee is at 6. I'm almost certain I threw this on and it sounded good as is, so I think all of those settings are default. I got lucky. Then blank block, nothing in the effects loop. Then we're going into the Jazz Rivette 120. The drive I had set to 2. The bass is set to 3.1. The mid is set to 4.8. The treble is at 7.2. The presence is at 7.8. Channel volume is at 8.5. Master's at 10. And the bright is at 5. Then we're going into that that same cab, but a variation, a mixed variation of that. Same own hammer, workhorse, exclusive Line 6 Marketplace cab pack. The OH412 DJNT V30V low gain. So this is a low gain kind of mix. Makes sense because we're on a clean tone. And I do not have a low cut or a high cut, and no EQ. A very, very simple, you know. Boom, that's it. Those are the tones I used in this Podgo, and this thing is sick, man. There's nothing more I can say other than this is an amazing piece of hardware. If you can get away with the limited inputs and outputs and routing options, I'd say for 90% of most people, this is all you need, and the price is right. So if you've been thinking about, you know, getting a Helix product, I would definitely look into this. I'm going to have a few more videos on the Podgo. This is not mine. My best buddy, Lenny, lent this to me. My hetero life mate, the man I've known longer than any other person who isn't family. He bought this and sent it right to me. So shout out to him for supporting me and the channel and allowing me to play with this so that I can show you guys. So I dig it. All appropriate links down below in the description, including links to my music. And if you dig what I'm putting down, hit subscribe and follow along. So I think it's safe to say that, albeit a little bit more stripped down, you're losing some ins, outs, and routing options. This thing is a Helix. It's a Helix through and through, and it does an amazing job. So if you're looking for something portable, lightweight, and still has the horsepower to deliver those amazing Helix sounds, I think this might be it, man. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for all the continued support. Special shout out to those of you that are sacrificing a few bucks a month, supporting me over on Patreon, and of course here as YouTube members. And if you're looking for other ways to support me, the channel, and what I'm doing here, I do have music for sale on Bandcamp, and of course streaming everywhere music is streamed. Thank you so much to all of you guys who bought my track the other day. Kind of blown away. You guys are great. The support just means everything to me. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it blows me away that people want to listen to my music and pay for it and stream it. So thank you guys so much. I hope you're all doing well, and we'll see you in the next one.